Infrastructure is crumbling and the problems are only getting worse. The pressure to find solutions is hot. Let's talk about why American cities have no water, no electricity, and no money to fix their infrastructure problems. Welcome to the Infrastructure Hot Seat Podcast, hosted by Chad Smeltzer.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Infrastructure Hot Seat Podcast. My name is Chad Smeltzer. I am your host. Today's guest is Jeff Odoms, who's the Public Works Director for Hallandale Beach, Florida. Thanks for joining me, Jeff.
Thanks for having me, sir. Appreciate it, Chad.
Jeff, I was looking through your background. You've been in the industry 20 plus years, almost 30 years, it looked like, or right around there. You started your career in the Army, it appears, or at least you were involved in the Army. Can you elaborate of like where you started and why you wanted to get into public works?
Sure. So again, thanks for having me this morning. Appreciate that. Well, for me, public works it's an interesting term. Public works, we use it now. We speak of municipal government, but public work or working for the public is actually a broad subject. So for me, it started with federal service in the military and the Army specifically. For a total of 12 years, I did in the military. And then I, got out, decided that it wasn't for me. I joined municipal government after that time in the city of West Palm Beach, where I worked in water and wastewater utilities, kind of started from the bottom up, so to speak. And then went through a different levels, got into environmental compliance, which is just a different side of utilities in that particular city. And then moved from there to Hallandale Beach as an assistant director of public works, which covers all of public works and utilities in a combination fashion. So it's kind of like water and wastewater and all the different aspects of public service as it relates to public works. And I've been with Hallandale Beach now for about 4 years.
Wow. Well, thanks for your service, first of all, and thanks for your service in public service, because we need more people like yourself out there doing the work to get these things done.
Thanks.
So as you started West Palm Beach, did you start from the bottom? I didn't see exactly what positions you held, but where did you start in West Palm Beach?
So when I left the military full time, I came to Florida and I began working, as I stated, with West Palm Beach. And I started as a trainee, as a wastewater treatment plant operator trainee. And I didn't know at the time what that was. It was kind of just answering an ad in the paper. And yes, that's what we used back then, newspapers for ads for jobs. I'm that kind of old, but that's what we did. So You'd circle it and you'd go to the interview and so forth. But that's where I first learned about utilities and utilities management from a wastewater treatment perspective, and worked with the plant and facility there to treat wastewater. Didn't know much about the biological process that it goes through. Didn't know much about the microorganisms that break down organic waste and through its process. And so it was a lot to learn. It was new, but it was interesting. So I stuck with it and eventually spent about 21 years of that 30 at that facility, working in that capacity at different levels of employment, trainee to licensed operator to a licensed operator and shift supervisor to superintendent, up the ladder to interim manager for the facility at one point when we were going through a change of management. So there was a lot of learning at that level. Leaving there, I moved into another position within the city, which was environmental compliance. And that was just about more of the industrial side of managing, if you will, to say industries and companies and their discharges into the wastewater system, and just managing those aspects, making sure they're complying with federal and state and local laws as to those discharges, things of that nature. And then subsequently from there, I moved into Hallandale Beach as the assistant director of utility operations, first and foremost, and dealt with sanitary sewer collections and wastewater collection, water distribution, water treatment, and gosh, there's so many other areas that I touch on. But that's how my utility career has progressed from pretty much the start to current.
What gives you the motivation?
I want to see the people get what they pay for. I said that rather quickly, and I didn't mean to answer so quickly, but it was like right there. But I kind of, one of the things with me is and I think anyone listening to this can attest to this next statement. When I walk out of my front door and I see flooding on my street or something not right, I get frustrated. And the first thing I think about is, who's doing this? Who's responsible for this? I paid for better than this. And all of those different thoughts go through our heads. And we want to call somebody, right? Well, if I'm going to be the person on the receiving end of one of my wife's phone calls, I want to give my best effort in this role for somebody else. So I guess for me, what drives me is seeing the people get what they are supposed to get by, by appropriate standard from municipal government as it relates to utilities and public works. That,
Yeah.
because I would want it for myself.
Yeah, that's you did respond right away to that, and that was great because it was a great answer. I mean, that's what I think most people would, I hope, say when public service, when they come out, they want to help others, basically. I mean, that's what our goal is, because I do the same thing where I walk out of my house and I'm like, okay, well, they didn't do the curb inlets yet. The sidewalks aren't finished. Why is it taking them so long? And then I think about, well, it's the scheduling issues. It's all the other issues that are happening out there in construction these days. It just takes longer to get things done with all the shortages of labor and stuff like that. Where have you had, because you're so motivated to move up and learn through all these different, at West Palm Beach was one of your, best places of learning, it seemed. Did you have a mentor there, or how did you just stay focused on wanting to grow there and learn more?
I think for me, one of the key people that there are a lot of people, with a 20-year career in one location, there are a lot of people that come and go. That help you develop a sense of wanting to learn and wanting to grow, and then also teach you how to be a mentor to someone else. There are a lot of people that come and go in your life. One particular person, there's a group of people I can name right now, but I remember Roberto Castro was very instrumental in my initial days on the facility, learning the plant. He would always take me under his wing, want to teach me things. He's passed since, but I give him that shout out because I've never forgotten the level of interest he took in me learning the right things to do as a young operator. And Robert Grupo is another very dear friend of mine who was very always supported me, helping me understand more managerial aspects of how to manage a facility and manage the team. As he's chief operator, he's a chief operator at another local utility right now. So I always speak to him and go to him sometimes for different understanding and guidance even now. From a higher level managerial position, kind of where I am right now, I would give that one to Bevan Baudet. He used to be 40 years at Palm Beach County waste utility director, and I still reach out to him periodically for questions and guidance. And I remember sitting with him one day at lunch when I was still at that facility, and I said to him, I said, "What do I need to do to grow and to become a director, to build my own reputation and experience and educational background?" And he took me, we sat at lunch and he just laid it out for me. He told me all the things that I should be considering doing. Many of those suggestions I took and put them in play. And here I am. So I give credit where that is due to those folks in my life, like you mentioned in your question, that helped me develop the mindset to be where I am today.
Now, did you go to get a degree and stuff like that? I don't know if I missed that in your LinkedIn, but did you have to go get a degree and stuff?
Not particularly in public works and utilities, because there's very limited at the collegiate level as it relates to that. But I do have a bachelor's degree in project management, which is while it's a generic type topic, if you will, it's very prominent in utilities because you have so many different types and styles of construction projects that you have to move through, that understanding the principles of project management becomes very, very important. So I have a bachelor's of science degree in project management, and I also have a graduate degree in emergency management, which, as anyone knows, in utilities, you have to be understanding how emergencies are just that. They come out of sudden onset, and you have to have ability to understand, move quickly, know where your resources lie, get the right resources in play, and be able to, put those things in an active plan to recover from whatever it is that just hit you out of nowhere. So those two degrees have really prepped me, I think, for the position that I hold right now.
Yeah, wow, that's good stuff. Because, and the reason why I brought up degrees is because I hear, my dad used to work at Charleston Water, and he never got that degree, so he always struggled to move up because they would
Hmm.
want that engineering degree, for example. And I always looked at that as, it didn't seem right. Someone with the
Hmm.
expertise of knowing how to run something and growing into leadership roles and want to learn more, whether they had a degree or not, just didn't make sense to me because they had this skill set of experience, like 20 some years of running a wastewater treatment
Hmm.
plant. That's a lot, or a water plant, right? And
Yep.
to hire somebody with a degree straight out of school with no experience it makes no sense when you look at it, or
I
like
agree with
pre.
that.
Yeah, I was just curious on
I
what you
agree
thought
with
about
that.
that.
No, I
Yeah.
agree with that because one of the things that I find sometimes is that many cities um, really stop themselves from grabbing great candidates when you focus in on a PE, which for us professional engineer
Right.
certification. Why? Because engineers are great. I'm not discounting them at all. You need engineers on your team. Engineers work from the perspective of building something to correct something that is not either built, or you're increasing capacity, you want to repair something, something like that. And they'll
Right.
design it. Wonderful. Operating that thing you design falls into a different category. If you're not the day-to-day person to touch it, to turn it, to twist it, to move it, to utilize it in whatever way it was meant to be used, and you're not at the table for discussion, it is a loss to the project overall. Because what you're losing is the understanding of usability and functionality at the
Mm,
ground level of what you design. You can design anything you like, but if you do not have the right person to understand how to operate it, you have a
right.
problem.
Yeah, wow, that's powerful, man. It's so true in all aspects of today, where I think we missed out on a lot of great, like you said, great potential that was there. We just never guided them up through the process of water, and sewer, treatment, and then getting them into the leadership roles. So we lack some education and guidance there. It seems like in certain places. So, what are some of the challenges you faced though? Because it wasn't easy, I'm sure, just moving up through the ranks.
No, no. There's always challenges. There's always challenges, and many of them are organizational. You
Yeah.
end up in organizations that have a mindset of what they see as what they see as the most important priority, what they believe is the way that it's always been done mentality. They don't have that innovative thought process that goes with new technology that might be coming forward, or new work practices that might be developed that makes things move. So when you have people that try to do that, sometimes you can stunt that growth.
Oh
Sometimes you
yeah.
can find yourself not willing to allow it to come into your organization because you don't understand it. And for me, those would be the challenges that I face, because a lot of times when I see things, I speak to those things and I want to see those things at least get discussed and potentially evaluated for implementation.
Right.
But you don't always get the support from the persons that you need to get that support from to see
Right.
those ideas germinate. So for me, if you ask my challenges over the years, is to have that opportunity to have new understandings germinate within an organization to help them become hopefully a more efficient way of doing business.
Yeah, I think that a lot of what I've heard through the years of my talking with public work directors like yourself and others throughout the country, it's always a challenge to get buy-in from everyone, right? Because you want your operators to buy in, you want everyone to buy in and stuff like that. But the issue is getting them all to buy in on the technology, for
Hmm.
example. So how
Hmm.
did you overcome a lot of did you have any experiences with that stuff, like trying to get everyone's buy-in?
Yeah, there's a process that often is it's a certification. I have I did a lot of Six Sigma training and efficiency data collection type certifications,
Yeah.
and looking at a lot, taking the time to assess processes and assess opportunities, and to review effectiveness of internal processes within the scope of the organization with which I work. I've done it in West Palm. I've done it in Hollandale.
Yeah.
And sometimes you look at things and you find out that by stratifying the data after you've collected it, you realize that maybe changing a certain process may save certain dollars within the scope of your organizational, your management of your organization.
Yeah.
Cost of poor quality is what it's usually called. And this is what that's demonstrated as. So if we make this change, we may save X amount of dollars over the next annual period. Something of that nature may be a part of the output reporting.
Right.
Well, you don't always get that buy-in
Right.
to make those changes because it may affect someone's position. It may affect someone's maybe not so much their position, but the amount and scope of work that they're responsible for may change.
Right.
And so sometimes management doesn't want to do that because it may expose certain poor decisions that were made previous that they don't want exposed. So you oftentimes, well, you spoke specifically to myself. I should say, find that diagnosis or assessment is not received. It's not something that, goes beyond, here's the report, and it kind of just sits at that level. And that's happened a couple of times in my career. So where those things are there that offer an opportunity to be hopefully better, they're not always taken for the reasons, whatever those reasons are, political reasons,
Right.
preferential reasons, all of those things weigh in on it.
First thing that popped in my head was ego. I've noticed
There's a lot of that.
A lot of ego. Yeah. And because, as you said, not in exact words, but, when an idea gets implemented, right, the last thing any decision maker wants is that to be looked upon as a bad decision, so the ego is getting in the way. Then it's like, okay, well, we're just going to keep using the same crappy system, even though I made the decision to purchase it, for example. That's the kind of thing that can really stifle an organization, right? I mean, that's the kind of stuff that just really hampers our progress and infrastructure. I think it's a lot of that.
It does.
Yeah,
it does. 100%. 100%.
Yeah. So where do you think we can move from that? You think we are changing the way we're doing things now? You're obviously an open-minded public works director. You like to look at new things, technologies, and new ideas. But how can we get others to do that?
Well, one of the biggest things we have to look at is, it goes back to one of the first questions you asked me. Why am I doing this? Yeah. If I'm doing this for self-promotion, if I'm doing this podcast because I want to be out there, somebody calls me up and offer me a great opportunity, then maybe I'm doing it for the wrong reason. Because if my end goal is to put the best opportunity in front of the people for them to achieve the goal of having their projects completed for the betterment of their life, their life experience, if that is my true goal, then I should be open to every opportunity to learn something new, save $1 and increase productivity and make something more effective and more efficient. That should be my goal every day. If it's not, then I need to check, quote, my ego to find out exactly why I'm doing this. So when you say to me, where do we go from here? We need more of this thought process in our industry. We need to be thinking more about what's good for the people at the end product as opposed to what's good for us in our professional growth. We just need more of that. If we learn to look at it, like I said, from the perspective of what am I getting for my tax dollar when I walk out of my front door, and then thinking about, am I giving everything I can for the tax dollars of the city that I serve in the same manner that I would want to receive it? That's the move. That's where we need to be trying to go as people that are trying to work in this industry.
Yeah, 100%. You're exactly right, man. That's the mentality we need, and more of that. So as you and I have talked about procurement recently in the past couple, I guess, weeks at this point.
Yes.
One of the biggest challenges now is like supply chain issues, labor issues, getting projects done on time, contractors being able to, it sounds like, kind of control the whole process because there's limited supply of contractors, so they can dictate what they want and how they want it.
I'm facing that challenge right now, actually.
Are you? Okay, go ahead.
I am.
I was curious on what your thought is on that.
Well, I will tell you, I just had a meeting. I can't say the contractor's name. I wouldn't do that to them, but I had a recent meeting where, I just got their situation straight with us. They're contracted and stuff like that. And then they give us their, their schedule, their baseline schedule. And it was so far out from actually starting the project that we had a meeting, and I was like frustrated. I'm like, it shouldn't take that long. But again, supply chain issues, wanting to have things ordered ahead of time before they begin the construction is important to them as a contractor, so they're not tying up their resources in an unnecessary fashion by starting a project and then having to leave and then come back. Those kinds of things. They want to come in from start to finish on the project, but they can't because the supply chain slowdowns cause them to have to wait to be able to do that. So what that means for me as an end user is my start date on the project gets pushed back dramatically because you're trying to make sure, you as a contractor are trying to make sure everything is here before you start. So I'm getting times of 1 year to start after I've given you a purchase order. It's a long time to have a purchase order open and with no work actually functioning on it. So that is part of a real world example. Since we spoke about it the last time, I've talked to other directors at some of our neighboring cities, and it's something that we're seeing across the board.
So if we have all these contractors, how, because the budget's got to be spent. We got to get the money out. We got to get the projects done. That's why the capital money's there. But if this continues to overlap budgets, how are we going to keep the money in to do these projects? Because eventually it's like, how do we keep moving these projects along, but get the budget money going with it? I don't know if I'm describing that correctly, but
no, you are. What you would do, like in our case, what I would end up doing is I have to roll the budget. I have to roll the purchase order into the next fiscal year. So it just keeps rolling till the job is completed. So, when we get to the end of this fiscal year, which would be like September 30th, right around that time frame, obviously with this particular project is not going to be done. So I'll have to roll that purchase order over to the next year, and it continues. But the real heartburn is that's the somewhat easy part. The real heartburn is when I have to meet with the commissioners and they're asking me for a construction plan, and I outline timeframes that I believe are fair and justifiable. And then those timeframes now get pushed back because of supply chain. It comes back to where I mentioned a little while ago. What are the city residents getting? And then they start looking, but you said such and such a time, and now it's not that time. Those are the hard conversations to have.
Oh yeah, because everybody wants things now, right?
Everybody wants it. We're a now generation. We grew up with now, So we don't understand slowdown. We don't understand, that. So that's the problem. That's the challenge.
How do you handle those conversations with commissioners and council people? I could only imagine what it's like, but I'm just in a certain way. Could you describe it? Is it just
it's a very delicate conversation, but not delicate because of them not understanding that. I wouldn't say that. I think what it is you want to try to give people, you really want to try to give people what they're asking for. For me anyway, you really want to get that thing built so it's completed. You have that feeling of accomplishment. You have that feeling that you did the job right and that the public got it.
Yeah.
So you push, and I push. We're doing right now I have about $71 million worth of actual infrastructure projects trying to get completed within the next 2.5 years.
Wow.
But I'm what I consider somewhat aggressive. Our city really needs it. We need to get it done. So you get out and you say, listen, we're going to start by such and such a time. Based on what I see, we can start by such and such a time. Okay, so you asked me the question, how do you go back now and have the conversation? Well, ma'am, sir, things didn't go as well as I thought they were going to go. Supply chain issues are now impacting our ability to move forward at the pace that I thought we would originally. But please bear in mind and understand that it's still at the forefront of our thought process to get these projects done and accomplished on behalf of the city. We want to see this happen. It's not for a lack of desire, and it's not for a lack of focus and prioritization. It's really impacted by what we're facing countrywide right now. And just rest assured that as soon as we have the ability to get the project started and completed, just know that that's our everyday desire and motivation.
Yeah, that is a very good way of articulating the way to talk to the right people, man. That's for sure. What are some of the things that a contractor could do better?
There are 2 points that happen with contractors. Either they don't have enough staff, or the supply chain issues that you mentioned a few moments ago, like they can't get the items that they need. For me, the way they can help is if obviously if they can get more people, more team members and stuff like that. If they could do that, that would be great, because then you have more people available to get out to more jobs and get the jobs started sooner. If But the supply chain is the thing. There's no movement on that. You're still subject to whatever that's going to look like in regards to being able to get your project started in a timely manner.
Right. A way of like understanding more about, the struggles with you trying to get projects completed and trying to appease the council and make sure everyone's happy on that side, but also trying to work with the contractors and appease them sort of too, so that they can get to your project sooner rather than later. But you're competing kind of with other cities. Is that
Very much so.
the way it feels?
Very much so.
Okay.
It is a rapid competition right now. The good thing that happened with this administration at the federal level is that they've put so much money into infrastructure, and money and funding opportunities are so much out there that cities are all taking advantage, and projects that may have been on the shelf for years are now getting pushed back out because they have a lot of federal aid to support them getting constructed. What that means is construction teams are now pressed into service a lot more than they would have been, say, 2-3 years ago. That's one aspect. That means the opening of opportunities for people to have work in construction is much higher than it was. That's the plus. The downside is there are less people in the labor market, and less people trying to be on those construction teams. So you have a dichotomy of operation. We're giving more work out, we have more money available, we have more work to be done, but we have less people to do it.
Yeah.
And that's one thing. So that creates a competitive aspect to all of the cities that are trying to get this work done. Why? Because we're all fighting for the same pool of contractors.
Right.
And this is just the contractor part of the conversation. Supply chain we already discussed. So you compound it with the supply chain slowdown plus what I just mentioned, and you really make it a competitive opportunity. Everything is on the table now. How fast can you get a PO out the door? Because they need the PO to order the parts. You can't order the parts without a PO. So if your PO process is a long process, you're already behind the 8 ball if City X is able to get their PO out the door in half the time that you are. So all of those things weigh against one another. All of those things fight against each other. All these metrics, fight against each other. And so now you have, if you recall, I'll just take a moment of your time to just give you this example. If you recall, at the very beginning of COVID, when everyone was trying to get ventilators and masks. I don't know if you remember this.
Oh, no, I remember.
And you remember on the news, you would hear like this person grabbed a check and they ran down and they had to go buy it right off the airplane. And another city got there first with their check and they got their supplies and they came with masks on a plane, and all of those things were happening on the news. You would see those stories. That's what's happening now in the construction aspect, just not broadly spoken of. In other words, it's not running down the street with a check, but it's who can get their project out faster and get the services under contract with a vendor first, can get on the list of having their project completed.
So then that gives the contractors, and I know you and I talked about this, but that gives the contractors the massive advantage of just picking what cities they want to work with, where they're going to make the most
100%.
money. 100%. What's going to be the easiest city to work with. And if they're going to, especially as my experience in construction, if you're going to give me the opportunity to do change orders, if you say, hey, if I know you're a great city and you're going to give me the opportunity to change orders, I'm working with you before I work with any other city, because I don't want to have to deal with change order restrictions and stuff.
Everything's on the table. If it takes me twice as long to get my pay applications responded to with City A, but City B is really easy when I submit my pay applications to get my team paid, which is important to them. They give me no headache. They give me no drama. I get my stuff done. I'm going with B over A. Especially if I can get equal money or almost the same money.
Yeah.
So you really put your city at a deficit by not having those opportunities looked at to improve your process to get things done faster, whatever city that may be.
Yeah. Wow. It's always awesome talking to you, Jeff. Every time we get together, I get kind of goosebumps because you're hitting these points, man. It's like real talk. So as we wrap this up, because we're at the end of the podcast, what's one thing that you could share with the younger generation that are listening to this podcast and like want to potentially get into this, either the construction side or in the public works side? What's some of the advice you would give a young person?
So I would look at the construction side first, and I'll end on public service side. The construction side is if you're a young person, and you have the idea to build a company, to build, to work in construction and all those things, and want to work in projects, this is a great time. Because there's so much work available, so many projects available for you to submit bids in on, and to be a part of building your own personal company's profile by being a part of so many different projects. So this is a great time for that. I would say to you, go after all of the proper business permits, opening permits. I mean, to open a business, get all the certifications you need, develop whatever your business profile is going to be, set up your website, all of that stuff, LLC, all of that, and get yourself into the game of bidding on government and municipal projects. There are a lot out there, millions of dollars. If you do good work, I'm sure you'll find a way to make a good be successful, right?
Right.
On the public service side, I would say this, and this is something that is hard sometimes, because a lot of people, they don't see it maybe from the perspective that I see it. If you have a desire to work in public service, ensure it comes from your heart more than it comes from your desire for professional growth. You'll get so much more out of it. You may not feel you get listened to as much, because that passion that you're going to have is going to bump into a lot of political thought processes. But if you hold on to the passion, you will be rewarded when you see your projects done, when you know a neighborhood that really needs it got that project done, when you know that streets are repaved and they look beautiful to the eye as you drive down those streets, or a lift station that constantly overflows because it's old and outdated is now been rehabilitated and now works, and it has a nice row of hedges around it now, and not a broken fence to make it look bad to the eye. You feel that when you bring that passion to work. And it can be disappointing when it doesn't move fast. I will honestly say that. But at the end, the reward feels so much better. So you just got to stick with it. So if you want to be in public service, you want to be in public works in any way, bring the passion to see the end result more than the passion for your own personal growth. You'll be much the better for it at the end of it all.
Jeff, that was powerful, man. And you're right on the money with all that. You got to have passion. And, even on the construction side, I think passion is very helpful too. The wantingness to do a quality job, because right now, as we can see, potential of, in doing a project is great, but making sure we apply the products, materials and stuff like that correctly is sustainable for the future, right? Life cycle management, things like that for infrastructure. So passion on both sides. I mean, you hit it, man. It's great to hear someone like yourself out there, giving advice like that is what we need in this space. So thank you so much for joining me on the podcast. It's been awesome.
You're more than welcome, sir. You're more than welcome.
How can people get a hold of you?
Well, they can find me very relatively easily. I'm on LinkedIn. You can find me there. I'm at City of Hollandale Beach. You can find me there. I have a small consulting company that I'm putting together. You can find me there. It's umisconsulting.com. It's also Utilities Management Installation Solutions. Now you know why I use the acronym UMIS, because that can be a tongue twister. But you can find me in all these different locations, and please reach out via LinkedIn, reach out via email, reach out via, you can get my phone call information from those locations. I'm readily available. I'm easy to talk to and always willing to share.
You are, man. And it's been a pleasure meeting you and talking to you. And thank you so much again for joining me on the podcast, and you have a great day.
And you as well, sir. Great to be here. Thanks again.
Thank you for listening to the Infrastructure Hot Seat Podcast. We hope that this show brought you some insight on relevant topics within the infrastructure world. Please join us every 2 weeks on Tuesday for the next episode. If you're interested in being a guest on this podcast, please set up a 15-minute interview with your host at calendly.com/Chad Smeltzer.